So yeah, this is an Ask Us Anything. We are experimenting with the format. We have a hypothesis that if we play around enough with this, we will get it right. So we will take a few questions that were submitted in the Facebook group and in our Slack community. And guys who are in the meeting, feel free to add messages to, send us questions in chat. And I will try to remember to look at the Facebook group to see if anybody added any comments there. But if you guys are ready, I'm ready. Daniel, are you ready?
I am ready.
Outstanding. So our first question came from the Facebook group. It came from Nikhil. And the question is, how do you know if the next company you are applying for is the best fit for you? Great question. Definitely a question everybody should be asking themselves, especially, times are tight. The job market is tight. We think about accepting any offer that comes our way. And more often than not, that is a mistake. I would kick things off by saying, the obvious. I do a lot of coaching, and a lot of our job is reminding people of the obvious. But to know if it's a great fit, you have to know what you want. And you may have things in your head. You may have thought about it or have, subconsciously you have some idea. But I think it's really important to write down what you want. What does your perfect employer look like? And what are your deal breakers? You could start with that. And there are various, kind of characteristics of an employer you can think of: their location, their industry, their business type. Are they B2B? Are they B2C? What can you discover about their culture? Is it kind of decentralized management? Is that where you thrive? Or do you like the big machine where you can jump in and, there are well-defined processes and roles? So I would say write down what your ideal employer looks like. Write down hopefully a short list of deal breakers, things that you just don't think you could be happy if those are the case. Maybe a job opportunity that's an hour-and-a-half commute away. Maybe a job opportunity with a big structured company. A lot of people say that they do not want to work in some big company with a lot of constraints and all that. So what I would say is write down what you want, what you want in an employer, write down deal breakers, and then you can do like even a simple matrix. You can just assess every potential employer by those criteria and at least have an idea of which ones are the best fit. If some score low, you might, decide, wow, I'm going to have to think 3 or 4 times before I take that offer. Daniel, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's very sensible. I guess the hard part is figuring out exactly how, what does that employer actually work like in behind the scenes. So you need to you need to do your research and figure out what those companies, how those companies work, and there are multiple tools you can use like Glassdoor and similar things. But yeah, I think that figuring out what you want first is the obvious first step, but then you need to do some research to double check that.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? There's no better form of research than finding somebody who works there. And that can be tricky, but I told you we took questions from a Facebook group. Maybe I'll post the link in chat here in case folks want to join it. But there are people in there all the time saying, hey, does anybody work at XYZ? I would like to chat with you. If you're connected with people on LinkedIn from that organization, or if you can, get connected and tell them, you might want to caveat it. Look, I'm not looking for some unfair advantage or inside information, but I have an interview. I'm really curious what the work culture is like because that's really important to me. And in my experience, product managers are like really forthcoming with their time and great communicators, and you can get a lot of good info. So Nikhil, I hope that answers your question. We will move on. Well, it's another question from Nikhil. Yes,
Yeah.
good questions.
So I guess the question is, how you go around to landing a decent product role when your resume isn't getting screened. So I guess so. This comes back to also being proactive and pursuing opportunities. So it's not about submitting a resume and hoping for the best. You shouldn't be ending up in a pile of resumes, because that's, you've already lost a big chunk of the battle right there. So you need to be visible on the one hand, and be, publicly promoting stuff, promoting, visible to anyone that might be a potential employer. And secondly, be proactive in pursuing opportunities, and in shaping your resume and your cover letters to the job at hand.
Yeah. So, you have to look at every step. So your resume may be horrible. We have a resume checklist that's publicly available. I will post a link to that in the chat in Zoom, and I will see if I can get these links copied over to Facebook. So it may be a problem with your resume, but this whole approach, which everybody takes, of just looking at existing job opportunities, that's not where the great jobs are. The great jobs never get posted. So you've got to be energizing your network. You've got to be figuring out, as I said before, the type of company you want to work for, establishing relationships and trying to get in there. Be proactive, don't be passive. So I hope that helps. Our next question is from our Slack community, from Sara. And she asks, very profound question: is there anything I can do as a product manager when big customers decide to pay for features and stakeholders are convinced they should take the money? So this comes back to this whole kind of tension between serving our customers, the people who have bought our products, and serving the market, the people who haven't bought our product yet. And it's rarely either optimizing for one or the other. It's always a balance. And I've been in organizations, especially like project-oriented organizations, complex products have to be delivered as projects. They can get in this mode where all they really are is like a custom development house for their 5 biggest clients. And at the same time, management will tell you, leadership will tell you, we're not growing fast enough. So what I would say is that, you need to have a common framework of objectives, measurable things you want to achieve with your management. And if they're talking out both sides of their mouth saying, well, we want to grow, we want 30% of our business to be new business next year, and they're taking all the development capacity to do stuff for their existing customers, I guess you have to point that out in a tactful way and say, hey guys, I don't think we're going to make this, new business target, because we're just serving these customers. And I think you have to have done your homework. You have to have a compelling product strategy with a great roadmap. You have to get buy-in for it. And then you have to go to them and say, look, I understand every once in a while to close a deal, we need to do something for a customer, but we are not going to grow this way. If you're okay, if we're happy just trying to, keep our installed base, maybe, get more pocket share from the companies we're dealing with, get, more revenue from the companies who have already bought our product, then that's a decision to make and I support it. But if we want to grow, I can't spend all my capacity on our existing customers. So it's a very rational argument based on aligning on strategy and showing data. So sometimes, looking at the last release, marking up requirements or features to just be in a position to say, you know what, 70% of our capacity went to serving customer requests as opposed to doing what the market needs. So try to get aligned on strategy, try to show some data, and be ready to just accept, the decision that they make. And of course, that has implications for your career.
Yeah, I guess if you're able to really show in a convincing way, the size of the opportunity for the unserved market need, then that will get you some credit towards actually being able to build it into the product. So you need to perhaps double down on the research and the amount of data that you show them to illustrate the alternative of not serving your current customers and pursuing an additional chunk of the market.
Yeah, and the bar is super high, right?
Right.
$1 in guaranteed revenue is worth, pick a number, $500 of potential revenue. It depends on the risk profile of the organization.
Right.
But going back and saying, hey, we want to grow. If we want to grow, we cannot become a design shop for our biggest customers. And I'm working on, with another product manager, a blog post around saying no. But that is an instance where you need to say no to management. That needs to be your going in position and say, guys, I get this. And we got to keep the lights on. Times are tight. But we have got to move the lever a little bit. We cannot be doing everything for our customers. And, being able to show this is the cost. This is what we miss out on if we don't do things. And, you might be surprised. If you can get sales sold off on that, they're going to be the hardest crowd. They are money, coin operated. Anyway, a lot of discussion there. I know I monologued like crazy. I hope that helped.
So we just got in another questions from Suvija. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But yeah, so the question is, how difficult is it to find jobs abroad in product management, especially when someone is making a fresh transition into the field, that is with no software development background? Right. So I guess that you're trying to get a job, outside your home country, and you're asking, how difficult is it to find a job without prior experience in software development in those conditions?
Yeah, that does not sound good. I'm not going to candy coat that one. Like, even if you have experience, that's a hurdle. Getting a job overseas, because there's usually additional cost for the employer. There's risk about how well you will adapt and all those things. What I would look to is, we divide professional development into 4 building blocks. There's product proficiency. You don't have that apparently from kind of a tech perspective. So that's an issue. There's technical knowledge. You have very little of that as well. There are soft skills. So you might be able to play some of those up, but those probably will not be decisive. The other building block is domain expertise. So where you can maybe get a job where you wouldn't, based on the other building blocks I mentioned, are when you are an expert in a field, if you really know the field, but the bar is going to be really high. So, in general, to get a job as a product manager, you have to have experience. That's this chicken egg thing that kills everybody. What some people don't think about, though, is it doesn't necessarily have to be experience working for somebody else. So I think the answer to your question is that's just taking on too much to go overseas and try to get a job when you don't have a lot of relevant experience, particularly in today's climate. I just think you're almost wasting your time. I'm also a dreamer, though. So it can't hurt to try. All they can do is say no. I just want to set very realistic expectations. But you need to prepare yourself. You need to make sure you have the conceptual background, get some training. You should try to PM your own thing, come up with an idea, offer some free time to another company, something that you can put in a portfolio and say, look, I've done a roadmap, I've built a product strategy, I have done user research, and be in a position that you can actually show, compelling examples or the best examples you have. But yeah, that's all I have to say there. Daniel, anything else from your end?
No, yeah, that sums it up. We were getting a new question from Facebook. I'm trying to clarify it as we speak. So perhaps we move on to one of the other ones that we had on our backlog.
I would love to. This one comes from one of my favorite PMs. He just got, well, I shouldn't talk too much about what he's up to, but he's up to exciting things. Javier is his name. And he's basically asking, how do you change the mindset of a team when they haven't been product oriented or product management oriented? How can you get this team that has done things in a very conventional way, maybe even a waterfall way, to accept these new paradigms of product management, of Agile? And that is a great question. It's quite a difficult task. Daniel, what do you think?
So yeah, what I usually suggest is that you look at, creating that product mindset as one of your kind of like as if it were a product KPI that you optimize for. So accept that it's not a battle that you will win overnight. It's something that's going to take some time, and you need to define some targets for what that looks like. So how does this, what does success look like in changing an organization's culture? And that might mean, okay, so let's add some, product analytics, or let's add some discussions around metrics, or let's add some workshops on, product discoveries, whatever moves the needle a little bit closer to a modern product culture. So I try to, break that problem down into smaller steps that are more achievable, and accept that it's a long fight. It's not something that I'll get done overnight.
Yeah, I think that's true. I would say in general, with new things that can be disruptive, nothing sells like success. So instead of like trying to convince the whole organization to change the way it works and adopt this new thing, I would try to find an area. It may just be one feature, one area where you can kind of go through the mini process of talking to customers, defining requirements, prioritizing them, and then successfully launch those things will speak much louder than, just a bunch of conceptual stuff, a bunch of slideshows. So I would say we called those speedboats. Look for a speedboat and, balance the efforts on the top and the bottom of the organization. At the right level, you have to convince leadership that this is a good idea. You have to be realistic that as you adopt these things, you'll actually lose velocity at first, but then you'll pick things up. You will make up for lost time. And then the bottom of the organization has to believe in it as well. So just like you do with your customers, you have to distill the value proposition, show what's in it for them, and come up with a shared set of goals.
Also, another thing that also helps, going back to it's just showing the value in this approach, and bringing raw customer feedback, and that breaks assumptions about what people think in the org that the product does or is valuable for. So kind of confronting them with new data, new insights that you get from these approaches, and kind of triggering conversations that steer them towards better product practices.
Yeah. So very good. We got a question in the Facebook group about what the best approach is to product marketing these days. Normally I would look at that. It is such a broad question, right? Just too many variables. Mm-hmm. What market am I in? What type of product do I have? What are the customer relationships like? Blah, 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 blah. But I will use it as an opportunity to talk about something that is getting more and more traction that not everybody may be aware of. And that's this idea of product-led marketing. And that is this idea that your product really becomes the centerpiece of your marketing. You're not doing a lot of content marketing. You're not writing a lot of white papers. You're not doing print ads. Or you're not going to, events, as much as you are building your product so that people can get immediate value from it, so that it kind of sells itself. And that's a pretty popular approach, especially with consumer stuff on the internet. A lot of, freemium things that you go in and their goal is to upsell you. But it turns out that this, can be relevant in other domains. So you're seeing it now in B2B and other places where you find some way through the product to provide value without a big commitment up front, and find a way for the product to sell itself. I don't think it by itself in most cases is going to be sufficient, but it is an interesting way to think about how you develop, how you factor your product, how you license your product.
Yeah, this usually works really well for scenarios where the promoter is not the buyer, or the initial first user is not the buyer, because then you can have somebody kind of test it out a little bit, do some experiments with with the product in a low risk way, and then kind of promote it internally and get it in front of the people who actually make the buying decision. So this applies a lot to developer oriented products. Like, for instance, Twilio are excellent at this. Anyone can just sign up and play with it for free. And then after a while, they'll get engineering excited, and then engineering will sell the product into the rest of the org. And there are all sorts of verticals and types of products where this is useful.
Yeah, cool. So I hope that was helpful. We kind of hijacked that question, maybe.
Yeah.
But
Jaime, there's another question from Jaime Tantiado. It's similar to, I guess it's similar to the one that we got earlier from Suvija. Perhaps we can reiterate a little bit some of the points you made there. I'm not sure if Jaime was online.
is it the question about technical background?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so there is something that I can add there. I do coaching with a lot of folks who don't have the background in tech, in software. And I guess that makes sense. If you don't have experience there, it helps to have somebody who does have experience to help you, learn the concepts, position the work you've done in the right way. And the question I get a lot is, should I learn to program? And to me, the answer to that is no. That should not be your highest priority. That from a technical perspective, and remember the building blocks I managed: product proficiency, soft skills, domain expertise, and technical knowledge. So you don't have to be a technician, but as somebody in the tech world, you should have knowledge of the technology. If I had to start with something, I would start with development methodologies. I would understand Agile. I would understand Agile frameworks like Scrum and Kanban, how work gets managed. Technical work, that's your priority, not learning how to code. After that, I would look into architecture. I would try to develop some understanding of product architecture, because those are really important decisions that you should be involved in that can't be undone easily. And then I would consider, once I made, progress with those things, I would think about, if I've never done programming, take a course. We're compiling a list. I'm not sure when we'll get it published. But there are a bunch of places you can go and learn to code without installing a bunch of stuff. The goal there is not to become a great coder. The goal there is to have a little more empathy for your engineers, your developers. So that's the way I would look at it. I would look at technical knowledge as an area you need to improve in. I would look at development methodologies. I would think about architecture. I would look at technology trends, what's coming down the pike, what are the, the key frameworks and so forth. And then if I have extra time to build a little empathy or develop a little empathy for engineers, I might take a programming course. I hope that helps. You've got to disagree with something I said, Daniel.
No, not yet.
No? All right.
Not yet, no.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I guess that pretty much does it for the questions, no?
Yeah, I think that we are running out of time for today. But
cool. I hope everybody enjoyed it. We will record it, and we will post the recording in career.pm's Slack community. If you want to develop yourself as a product manager, especially if you don't have experience, take a look at what we offer on career.pm for, I think, really a reasonable price. We can help you develop a career strategy, a career roadmap to get you where you want to be. We are now offering some really cool courses that are partially recorded online, both in kind of consecutive sessions over a few weeks. And then in January, we'll start offering intensive courses that are like, 7 hours per day for 3 days with a lot of exercises, discussion. So go to career.pm, poke around. And I don't know if we'll do this weekly, bi-weekly. I guess part of that depends on the feedback we get. But I appreciate your time. I know how busy everyone is. And we will see you next time.